all work together and what order you use them.
You mean the different modules that are in Command?
Oh,
Or-
no, not Command, just like Realcomm, Gmar. There's so
You've
many.
got a lockbox tutorial, and then a contract tutorial, then a listing presentation, and then I get it.
Yeah, I'm a little overwhelmed by it all.
Okay.
I'm trying to focus on basically talking to people right now and playing with the different systems as much as I can.
Good. Well, hopefully some of the information that we have available here in the launch program, specifically, we have a whole list of the steps of a transaction, let's say like from the buy side, right? Starts with making a contact, right? Having a lead, turning them into a client, getting them to sign the papers, then you get them pre-qualified, pre-approved, start looking at houses. Like it's all the step by step by step. Perhaps by looking through that, it'll help you organize in your mind how all those different things come into place and in what order. It might be a way to do that.
And what I'll say too is that, you have to have a little bit of blind faith in terms of how it all will kind of come together, if you will, where it's like snowing outside. I'm sitting in front of the window and it's like snowing.
Not in Livonia.
Justin, it's probably coming your way.
Not 2 blocks from you. It's not.
Just wait.
Not yet.
So what I mean is, and this, I'm so glad to hear you say, I'm talking to people, I'm putting people in my database, because here's the thing, guys. Sharon and I have been doing this for a while. When we see new agents come in, and especially right now, right, because we can't physically be in front of people, people take the opportunity like, I'm going to do all the things, right? I'm going to make sure my Zillow profile and this and that. But they do all these things in preparation for the business, but they don't talk to people, right? They don't have conversations. And I remember being in that position. Justin, if you could mute yourself, that would be great.
I'll do it. I muted
Thanks.
you. Well,
sorry, loud. You're just a loud typer. So I remember being in that position. I did my Facebook page, my business page. I did my website. I put it on Facebook, an announcement out there. I updated my LinkedIn. I had this, I had that. Why don't just people call me, right? I'm a realtor. Why they should all just call me? And I realized, that I needed to have those conversations with people, right? And all of those things were important, but not the only way to get business, right? Until you start building up past clients and you build those referrals, you become that magnet. You kind of have to go out, right, and go out and find that business. So back to my original point where you said you're feeling overwhelmed and all of these things. Don't let that stop you from continuing to attend these things. Even if you walk out and you're like, I'm going to retain like a little bit of that. Because what's going to happen is that you're going to finally, through your efforts, you're going to have someone says, I'd like to see homes. And you're going to say, awesome. All right. Well, I remember I got to download that app. Okay. I already downloaded that app. Okay. I remember showing time. I'm going to clunk through it. Maybe I'll ask somebody for help, but I remember I got to do that. Okay. All right. And then well, great. Oh, I remember disclosures. Where were those? Gosh, I don't remember, but okay. I'll figure it out.
That's how I feel. Like
you're just going to start, you're going to remember like, I remember a little bit of this, right? And it's going to start click, right? And I will tell you too, you'll see Sharon and I in these classes as well, especially right now, because we can kind of see everyone. You almost never get it fully. And things change where you need to kind of sharpen the saw continuously. So it's like right now, imagine you're chopping up a whole bunch of stuff to make a recipe, but you just can't visualize what the end product looks like yet. Okay. So just have some faith, continuing to do the things you do. This goes for everyone, right? But it's only going to fall into place. It's only going to fall into place if you're making the contacts with people, you're talking about real estate, right? And you're setting the expectation that down the line, they're going to call you to be the realtor or refer you to somebody, right? And it takes time. So keep at it. It'll start to fall into place, but we are all in the same boat, guys. I know a lot, I've talked to a ton of agents right now. They feel handcuffed, they feel paralyzed. And it's easy to go into victim mode, right? Especially if you've been out doing business and now you suddenly can't. But everyone's on the same page. We're all on the same playing field. We're all stuck at home right now doing what we can do or what we can't do. So, at this time, I mean, I almost envy you guys in terms of being able to not be distracted by things that don't really matter. So you can focus on what you need to focus on. And I know that means also juggling kids and all this other stuff, but you do the best you can. So when this lifts, we can go out there and just hit the ground running.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just want to say that I've attended a couple of Pete's forums, and I really, even though I'm kind of following along with the forums and stuff, I love all the conversation and the stories and stuff, because I feel like I'm getting a lot out of that experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody can teach you what to fill in a blank on a contract. I talk about Pete's forums like an MBA. Like if you already had your undergrad degree and you just had to memorize things, and then you go into to get your master's in business, most of what's taught in an MBA curriculum is case studies, right? And what's really happened and what was the decisions made, and these are all the factors, and that's what you kind of get out of that, right?
Yeah. And you learn from people's missteps and from their successes, right? And Pete knows what all of those are because he's the broker that has to handle them, right? When things go wrong.
Pete's trying to teach us how to think, right? And that's the most important part.
Yeah. And selfishly, and I'm sure he has said this in his classes before, if he can get everybody to do things the right way the first time, that makes his job a whole lot easier, right? Because his license is the one that's at risk. So yeah, I'm a huge proponent of his classes.
Okay, it's snowing here now.
What?
See, told you.
Big time.
Wait, where do you live?
Yeah, it's snowing here now too, Matt. Pretty
All right,
good.
so Northville.
I'm 8 and Center.
Oh, right downtown. All right, so I got about 3 miles. I'm at 5 and like 296, 275. All right, so we'll see. It's coming.
Okay.
So how are you guys doing? Did you guys all download your apps that we talked about on Monday? So it was CentraLock, the Real Comp app, the Showing Time app. Yes? Okay. Simone, how you doing? Hey, I can't see your face, but I can see your name.
Good, Sharon. I think I got to change the setting on that. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Let me see here.
How has this past week looked for you? What's been
For me?
time? Yeah.
Let's see here. I'm trying to turn my camera on. So I've been working full time on my day job still. So that's surprisingly been really busy. I've got an offer going. I've been changing up some addendums. I wouldn't mind you or Matt taking a look at them.
There you are.
Warning, I'm not wearing any makeup. So.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, we would love to look at it. No problem.
Okay, just 3 changes with the contract. So maybe I can send that over to you.
Yeah. Sure.
But yeah, I've been busy. I still need to go to command. I wasn't able to attend last Thursday's class because of my other job, but I still got to go into command and start entering those contacts. So don't let me delay you guys from what you're doing. I'm really appreciating listening to the conversation.
Good. And we want to be able to support you in whatever time challenges that you're facing, right? Because you are still working full-time in something else, right? So that's a different set of challenges that you have.
Yeah. But I'm so happy I can squeeze this in when I can.
Yeah. And, much like other industries, for instance, my son was supposed to have a doctor's checkup before they would refill one of his prescriptions. And we had a telemed appointment yesterday, and the doctor just asked him how he's doing, how's he feeling, whatever. And she called it in. And they're going to continue doing that for certain types of appointments. And, we had talked about doing a lot of these things digitally and recording them for, since the fall. And the circumstances, kicked us into putting this into place. And I think I speak for both of us, that we're going to continue doing something like this in some way, or at least
that's awesome
for the dual career agents, because before we were trying to do something once a month in person, and perhaps we could do it a little more often online like this.
Okay, I would really like that. Thank you.
Yeah. And then building a library in a YouTube channel so that if you miss it, or, you know, people can just go in and kind of listen to stuff for tips or support,
Okay.
you know, whatever.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, everyone uploaded the apps, right? Did you guys create the SentryLock accounts? Did you get to that and make your code and all that kind of stuff? Or did anybody have any problems with that?
I did. I got it done.
Good. Thanks, Jen.
I
I see your
think I
beautiful
did it
still
with-
picture. You got it done too?
Thank-
Okay.
I think I
Justin,
did
you're all good?
verify it.
All set.
All right. And Jean? Did you do it? Were you able to?
I downloaded it, but I don't think I was able to get into it. I was playing with it and then I got distracted and never went back to it.
Okay. So go back to it, see if you can figure it out, or if you go through RealComp, they can help you as well.
Okay.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about the necessary forms for a transaction. So let's see. I'm going to share the screen. I
I
hope.
I need to apologize in advance. I have a hard stop at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
I'm just going to drop off, but
Okay.
apologize
That's
for
fine.
that.
No problem.
Actually, since he's saying that, Sharon, I do too, unfortunately.
Okay.
Not normal for me. I just have a GMAR.
GMAR?
Yeah, Agent 101 course I'm doing.
Okay, awesome. That's fine. So these are, if you guys have been doing Pete's Forms, you should be familiar with all of these, right? So we have this split up into two sections. The left side is, those are all of the documents that are related specifically to the offer, you know, for a piece of property. And you'll see in that second little column, you know, who is it that signs those? Is it the buyer and the agent? Is it just the buyer or no one, you know, like on the pre-approval letter? And then as you go a little further down, you'll see addendums if applicable, right? So not every offer is going to have an occupancy because maybe they're closing and exchanging keys, you know, at closing. Not everybody's going to have the 72 to 48 hour contingent sale addendum, but if their offer is contingent on the closing of or the sale of a current home, that's going to be an addendum that's going to be included. Well and septic, you know, is it an FHA or VA addendum? Or maybe the blank addendum for special conditions that you might be putting together. But those top, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those top 5 forms, absolutely every time, are what is going to be filled out, signed, and sent to the listing agent. All of those things, right? On the right side of that chart, those are documents that you also need to have signed. However, they are for compliance inside of our market center. They're not offer related, if that makes sense.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Absolutely.
So before the submitting the offer, but the part of when we meet our client and we are having a consultation with them or going through our presentation and we have them sign, so we're going to have them sign the exclusive designated buyer agency contract to become, to get them to become our client.
Yep.
At that time when we meet them the first time and get them and sign them as our client and start working for them, is that the only piece of paperwork that we need to sign at that time, or do we need to sign the affiliated title mortgage and this other stuff at that time?
At that time, when they become your client, or even right before, right, they need to sign the agency relationship.
That one too? Okay.
Right? Because that, technically, they should be signing that before they share any confidential information with you.
Wouldn't doesn't the designated buyer agency contract handle that between us?
No. You have to do, the state of Michigan requires that the agency disclosure be signed, because that's what you're sending to the listing agent. And then the buyer's agency contract is what commits you to each other as agent and client contractually.
Right. So the disclosure, but when we first have them signed, that disclosure, doesn't that just need to be signed before we submit the offer, but not necessarily when we sign them as a client?
So
Or is this?
technically, if you ask Pete and you talk to Pete,
Mhm.
those should be signed either at the same time, right?
Mhm.
Or even before they sign the agency contract. Because when you're
Hmm.
disclosing agency to a person, what you're telling them is that according to the state of Michigan, they have the right to be represented by whomever they choose, that they don't have to go with the listing agent to buy a certain house. And they are also being informed that we are acting as, oh, my internet. Oh, it's raining here, not snowing. Anyway, it said my internet was unstable. They also need to be aware that you're acting as a designated agent, which means that just because you and I are both in the same brokerage with Keller Williams, I am not privy to any of the confidential information that your client is sharing with you, right? Only Pete, as our broker, would be someone who would have that kind of information. So that kind of conversation is something that you should be talking to them about at the beginning, at the very beginning, just so everyone knows what the expectations are as far as confidentiality, right?
Mhm. Okay.
And as well, at the very bottom of that agency disclosure, you know, there's those couple of lines that says they are or are not currently in an agency relationship with another agent,
Right.
right? So that's a conversation you need to have with them before you sign.
Right. I was
contract.
going to ask him, that part about working with somebody else on the phone before I even met him at the office.
No, you should. But what I'm saying
Yeah.
is it's in writing because they
No,
can
no,
tell
right,
you
right.
whatever they want, right?
Yeah, no, I was just asking. I'm putting together a, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name right now, but she was asking about everything coming in and it being overwhelming, which
Oh,
I've obviously
Gene.
going
Yep.
through that too.
Yep.
I'm kind of going through and doing that whole, which was, I was asking Matt about it yesterday, the step-by-step for the buyer process. I think those are really good to stick by, and then
Yeah.
customizing them towards how I would approach people.
Yeah.
And doing it myself. So that way the process, since I haven't done it yet, I have my own process where I'm listening, writing it down, I'm typing it out, making a form, so that way I can visualize the whole process in my head and what could happen and what to say to people.
Yeah,
But,
for sure.
Gmar was just saying that you didn't, yeah. Anyway.
No, what was, tell me, what did Gmar say?
Well, they were just saying that the buyer agency contract is law and you have to sign that, but the disclosure is not, because it's a disclosure, not a contract.
Hey, Matt.
But it doesn't, but anyways, but I was just wondering as far as when to have them sign it, because I'm putting that in my step-by-step process. But
I feel like that might be a miscommunication. Matt, what do you think about that? I mean,
I don't
we
know.
have to have
I
the
just-
disclosure signed.
I don't think it matters. Just get the contract signed and then get the disclosure signed when you submit an offer. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to split hairs. I don't want to get hung up on details. As long as you get it all signed to get paid.
So just
that's all.
Yeah. So I'm sign it at the same time. That's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Can't hurt.
So,
Thank you.
I kind of lost my train of thought a little bit.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's all right. So these are the documents that you need to make sure that you fill out, right? And these templates are now going to be and are now available also in DocuSign through Command now that function has been turned on. And again, in the next couple sessions, we'll put together kind of like a little lesson plan to walk through how to access those templates and how to put in electronic signature spaces and how to fill it all out so that you can have your client either electronically sign them or if you want to just print them out and sign them in person with your clients. But what's most important is on that left hand side of that chart to make sure that those first 5 documents without fail are filled out and sent to the listing agent. The only variable in that where it says buyer's pre-approval letter would be if it's a cash transaction, you would want to offer a proof of funds, which would be either a copy of a statement, with account numbers blacked out, or a letter from the client's financial institution vouching for the fact that they have enough funds available for, whatever the amount is, that the home is going for.
And on the seller's disc, all of those documents are in the coaching folder to be able to download a review. Like Sharon said, moving forward, we're going to be using them through DocuSign, which is a secure electronic signature platform that is integrated into Command. The only missing thing that isn't part of that is that pre-approval or proof of funds, which you would need to get via email or scan in, save as a PDF, and then upload it. And the same thing is for the seller's disclosures and lead-based paint. If you're representing a buyer, you're going to get those from the listing. So in RealComp, attached to the listing is those documents for you to download from the listing, upload them into Command, and then insert the signature blocks for your client to initial or sign.
Yeah, we should edit that and add those two things in, and note where to retrieve those.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Most people, you'll get to that point, and then you'll say, Matt, I'm looking through, I'm following this thing. Where are these? Well, they're from there. And you should get in the habit of, when you show homes, getting those documents to be able to present, even if your buyers aren't interested in that property, being able to go show a home and say, here's the disclosures, here's the lead-based paint for this property.
Yeah, because you're going to walk through a house, and often, a buyer's going to turn around and say, well, how old's the roof? And you're like, I don't know. Well, do you know how old the furnace is? No. Have they ever had water? Well, I don't know. Let me look at the disclosures. So print them out and look at them, so that you can answer some of those questions for them. You'll be more prepared. We were chatting a couple minutes ago about that process, that list that's available. And so, Jean, this is what I was talking about. In the launch folder under session number 4, which is what we're in today, is this step-by-step process for the buyer side. And there's a lot of steps, right? And these are the things that we get paid for, as well as the things that we know, not just what we do. But this might help see how those ingredients in that recipe are coming together, and how that's going to turn out to a nice baked cake of some sort at the end. Matt, you want to go through some of this?
Yes. So the important thing to remember, guys, is the first few. And I say that, and I'll say this again and again and again, because you can be the most knowledgeable about purchase agreements, the most polished in terms of being able to show a home, the most amazing dresser and ability to present and to show, to do all these things. But if you're not doing number 1 and number 2, none of that matters. And I know that it just seems so rudimentary. Matt, why are you even saying that? Is because both agents that are brand new and those who have been in the business for 30 years understand this, that this is the thing that will make or break you in terms of having a successful business. Is you have to generate leads. And this doesn't end. This doesn't ever end, right? Jim DeMora, who's been in this business for 20 some odd years, who's one of the number 1 producing agents in our office, has to continuously generate leads to get business. Now, you will build a database, and it will convert a little bit more from lead generation to lead follow-up, but you're constantly touching your database and prospecting in order to generate those leads. Now, the second is the conversion of the lead. Obviously, whether it's an inbound lead or someone that's referred to you, you have to get an appointment, right? And we talked about that last time, is, scheduling that buyer consultation to show, tell them the process to meet them in person to show your value. Pete even said it on Pete's forums. I think it was yesterday, get in the office. I think what did he say? Come into the office, Coita, something, or Starbucks or a Zoom. But before you go and see houses, having a consultation where you can go over this to explain this. There is a flow chart in the coaching folder. I think it's in this launch session or it's in buyer's resources. It's a flow chart. It doesn't have any branding or anything like that. So just, send that to your clients or use that as a thing. If you have a visual type person, they're going to like seeing that to understand what's next. Sharon's pulling it up right now. So when you're kind of explaining this home buyer consultation, you're going to then say, what is it that you're looking for, right? And how are we going to get you there? And you develop a plan with them. And then you start, you set them up on a portal, you start sending them properties, and then they say, I'd like to see a few. Great, let's schedule those. Once you see a property that you like, right? Hopefully, if you've had enough notice ahead of time, you're prepared. And what I mean by that is, you go into the listing with the listing ticket, whether it's printed out or as a PDF, saved on your computer or your laptop or your phone, so you can reference it, as well as the seller's disclosures. So when you are walking around that property, you're able to reference the things that Sharon mentioned. Now, I always carry a little pad and paper, or I pull up the notes on my phone, the notes app, because when you're walking through a property, you're inevitably going to have some questions, right? And your client is not going to remember that, them, but you should be writing them down, right? Either you need to ask the listing agent or you need to research on your own, but you're gathering the information or the questions that you need to be. And then I'll say this too, you should always assume in this day and age that you're going to be listened upon when you're in a property. Now, sellers should be disclosing that there's cameras and listening devices, but not all of them do. So the last thing that you want walking through a property is for a buyer to say anything that would get them in trouble, both negatively and positively. What I mean by that is derogatory language or anything, comments around the way it's decorated or the way it smells or ethnicities or what's the neighbor's house looks like or anything. So you want to be careful of that. In terms of positively, you don't want your buyer to be recorded walking through this house saying, oh my God, it's my dream house. I would pay anything for this. Because that's going to diminish your negotiating abilities, right? If they hear that. So I just typically say, let's talk freely, but let's keep our questions and our emotions in check, right? And we can talk about it after we've wrapped up the showing. Assuming that you've left the property and it's something that they really would love to submit an offer on, you're going to find a couple of different types of buyers. One, they're going to have to talk about it, right? Two, the ones that are going to, they're going to have to come back for a second showing. Some people have to do that. That's just what they do. You should, as part of your buyer consultation, set the expectations that in a competitive market, you may not have the ability to. A great property that hits the market and may sell relatively quickly. So I know if you're not the type of person like my wife who's not quick to make a decision, you want to make sure that you have all the information in front of you and that you're prepared. If you're not comfortable with that, maybe we should look at homes that have been on the market for a little while that might not have so much urgency associated with them. But when you leave the property, you should be able to have a short list of questions that the buyers might need answering that you can quickly get those answers for, right? I'll back it up a little bit, and I teach this during, I typically teach Ignite, making offers. Whenever I have a buyer that's really interested in a property that we're going to go see, I make it a point to reach out to the listing agent to ask a few questions. One, is the property still available? I think that sounds ridiculous to a few of you because why wouldn't it be available? But Sharon will attest some properties, even though they say active and they accept your showing request, already have an offer accepted or that they're negotiating. There's nothing wrong with that technically, but you want to make sure that property is indeed available. Do they have any offers on it? Maybe they do have offers on it and they're going to make a decision tomorrow. So your buyers need to know that going in today. They need to decide if they want to throw in an offer as well. I always ask is what's important to you besides price, what's important to your sellers? And some of you might ask, well, what do you mean by that? Well, what you have to understand in an offer is there's price and then there's also terms. And for some folks, they're just as important as each other. Meaning, if you offered me $1 million for my house and you said I had to be out tomorrow, I would move mountains to figure out how I would do that. My wife would kill me, but it would be worth it. On the other hand, if you just gave me full price, right, which is great, but you said, I need you to be out tomorrow, I would say, no, that's not possible. In fact, I need 2 months. And I might say, I am actually willing to take a little bit less than asking price if you give me those 2 months. So the importance of what's important to a seller as a whole can make a big difference. So the line that I use, hey, Mr. Whatever agent, looking excited to show your property at 123 Main Street. Quick question, is it still available? Yeah, it's available. Great. Do you have any offers on it? No, we haven't had any offers. Okay. Well, have you had a lot of showings on it? Yeah, we've had a lot of showings on it. People said they're interested, but nothing yet. Okay, great. Well, I've got a highly qualified buyer. We're seeing it this afternoon. They're super motivated. I'm excited to show it to them. Hey, listen, besides price, is there anything else that's important to your seller? He might say, well, yeah, they need some occupancy. They're building a new home and it's not going to be done until next month. So, if you make an offer, maybe give some occupancy, that would be great. Okay, amazing. Great. Thank you so much for that information. I'll let you know what they think about it when we show it. Right. So that's just the line. Then fast forward, you show it, buyers really love it. I would immediately reach out to the agent and say, hey, great news. My buyers really love the property. They're discussing right now making an offer. Just wanted to make sure that you don't have any offers in hand yet. If I was able to write something up and get it to you quickly, do you have the expectation that your sellers would be able to review and give us a response? And the reason I ask that is because maybe the sellers are out of town. Maybe they're older and they can't access digital documents, so they'll have to meet in person. Maybe whatever, a variety of reasons. But I'm just trying to move it forward. And then I'm also going to say, quick question. My buyers asked, what elementary school does this go to? Have they ever had any issues of this, or whatever the questions might be, right, that you might have. And then you present those responses to your buyer. I'm breezing through this, so bear with me. I'm going to call the buyer back. I'm going to say, hey, great news is they don't have any offers yet. Have you discussed? What are you thinking? And I'm going to be able to, depending on my buyers, I'm going to be prepared to be able to speak to them about what's going on in that market, meaning I'm kind of doing a mini CMA, right? Because buyers typically want to know what you think about the price. And I think it's important for you to look at the comparables to be able to say, well, I'm looking at the market and this house sold for this house sold for that, this house is pending for this. I think it's really priced quite fairly, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You know what I mean? So the buyers, can get an idea of what, the market value is, because, some buyers are going to try to negotiate, even if it's priced incredible. That's just in their nature, right? So we're going to discuss the price as well as the terms. And hopefully at this point, you've already, again, because a buyer's consultation is so important, you've already spoken to them about what occupancy is and what earnest money deposit is and what all these things that you're basically at this point just going to fill in the blanks of your purchase agreement for your offer. Okay. I'm talking a lot. Is everyone on board? Good. Okay. So you're going to write up that offer, right? And you're going to do it hastily because time will kill all deals. If you see a property on Saturday afternoon, they love it, but you don't get around to writing that offer on Monday, you're going to lose it.
So let me add, how many times have you gone to see a home that's been on the market for 2 months, 3 months, and it just so happens that the day that you went to go see it, somebody else went to go see it too, and all of a sudden you're competing, right?
Yeah. There's a line. There's a line. The house that you see today and will think about till tomorrow is the same house someone else saw yesterday and is coming back to purchase today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny. Sharon and I have been doing this long enough where it's so weird. You'll have a house that's been on the market for like 3 weeks, no offers, and then all of a sudden 2 offers come in, right? And you're like, what? And it's just the way it works, especially after new marketing or a price adjustment or just whatever, consumer confidence. It's just nature. So
Don't wait
again,
around.
don't wait around, right? I always say, like, get it in writing and submit it. And, at least get it in writing. We talk to agents and we're like, can we get that offer signed? And they're like, no. I'm like, what are you waiting for? That's your number one thing. That's it, right? There's very few things that take precedence over anything in this business, but negotiating contracts, especially when there's timelines, like I've done deals in the parking lot of a wedding I was about to walk in. Like sometimes it's just, you need to do it. You need to get it under contract. You need to get it in writing. So
Yep.
You're going to write up the offer. You're going to send it to your buyers. Really, at this point, again, they might have some questions, right? But if you've done a good job of presenting all the documentation ahead of time, it's going to be a matter of them just acknowledging that they understand, okay? You're going to then reach out to the listing agent. And you're going to say, great news, got an offer, sending it your way. Can you confirm your email, or however they said they're going to take offers? And, ask them to acknowledge that they've received it. Why this is important. I've received a phone call on a Monday from an agent pissed off that I never responded to his offer and I accepted a different one. And I apologized to him and I had no idea what he was talking about, because in my spam folder was an offer from him and I never saw it. And that sucks, right? But shame on him for not following up with me to confirm that I acknowledge that I received his offer, right? Either phone or text or something, right? So don't always rely on email. Maybe your email address is wrong. Maybe you typed it wrong. I always submit it via email and then follow up so that they can acknowledge that they've received it. And then at that time, again, affirm that, when are you going to be able to speak with your client? When should I expect a response? When you submit an offer, you're always going to have a deadline in it. And everyone asks us, what's the appropriate amount of time for a response? Well, that's not a blanket answer because it depends on a lot of factors. I always typically do 24 to 48 hours in terms of a response that I expect, but everybody's a little different. Now, you do need to put a time period in there, and it also depends on the day and time that you actually physically get the offer through. A lot of people are known on Sundays to not do a lot of work. So expecting a response by 5 p.m. on a Sunday when you gave the offer at 9 a.m. on Sundays might not apply or might not be feasible. So you do need to put a time. But then at that time, I asked the seller or the listing agent, hey, is it going to be a problem for you to get back to us by the time we've requested? You have to remember, as a buyer's agent, you are kind of kissing this listing agent's ass. And what I mean by that is this is the first step to a transaction, and you should be selling your client and selling yourself on why that they should want to work with you, right? So the guys that are automatically a jerk or condescending or not detail oriented are the types of people that are red flags in my book, right? So if I get a sloppy offer, if I'm bad at communicating, or I'm using whatever, these again are red flags to me. So make sure your presentation, the way you communicate, is top notch. Agreed, Sharon?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got, I remember in particular, an offer from an agent. The lending and the mortgage numbers were flipped. The type of loan wasn't in there. All the appliances that were supposed to be included was left blank. I mean, the guy just ran in there, threw a dollar amount and a date, and that was the end of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the rest of the transaction was me chasing and trying to keep things buttoned up. So yeah, you have to put your best foot forward and show them that you are going to be easy to work with, because it works in your favor. It's about rapport and confidence. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You are selling yourself as well as your client. So what does the offer look like? Well, the offer email, and I don't, do you mind sharing? Do you mind if I share my screen?
Let me stop. Yep. Hold on.
I just want to show you guys real quick of what it should look like. I know I'm not sharing my screen yet, so bear with me. So when you're sending an offer, don't do the just fire off or share the electronic signed or whatever. Make sure that you're okay. So something like this. This is, I've submitted this email. Peter, please see the attached offer for you and your seller's review. My clients do not have to sell their current home in order to purchase or close on this. They're also, I can't read that, flexible in terms of closing and occupancy. And, you know, this is all going to, it's going to be specific to your buyers, of course, but this is a little bit of, you know, of the details, right? Because every purchase agreement is different. We're using ours to submit the offer. Peter doesn't know my purchase agreement, so he's got to review it, but I'm also going to help him out, and I'm going to pull the information out of it that's pertinent to him. So when he's reading it on his phone or talking to his buyers, he's getting a high level understanding of what it is. I'm also trying to make sure my offer sounds great, meaning it's not contingent upon the sale, no seller paid concession, no home warranty. I mean, some people might think like, why would you put that if you're not asking for it? Because again, I'm trying to make my offer seem great. Does that make sense? So I'm going to put a little highlighted information about my offer. Feel as though this is offer exactly what the sellers are looking for. Hopefully it will be quickly accepted. Please confirm that you have received the offer, right? So after I've done that and I've attached it, right? So here's
Why don't you
my
open
offer.
it
I've
up?
attached
Yep,
it.
there you go.
Can you see it? Okay, so this is the offer, right? And I won't go through everything filled out, but this is the order that I want it to be in, okay? What I mean by that is you can select the order of the PDF in, well, two things. One, you notice what this PDF is called? 52028 Red Cedar, fully executed PA, 224 date. So it's got the address, what it is, and the date, all right? So many people just scan it in or attach it. It's like 2, 4, 5, and then, you know, like long, or it's 15
I usually put a last
attachments.
name. I usually add a last name
Oh,
to
you
it.
do? Okay.
Sometimes
That's a good tip.
mine, just as the agent.
Sure.
Sometimes it'll be mine underscore and the buyer, something, because if
Got it.
there's competitive, I want to know who's who.
Got it. Now this one I went back and forth on, so bear with me. But just this is the paperwork order, right? So I've got the PA, and you notice this is such a minor thing, but it's the right way. So many people scan in and they email it upside down. Again, it's just sloppy. Everything's signed the way it should be. Then I've got the seller's disclosure. Then I've got lead-based paint. Then I've got my disclosures.
Agency.
Right?
Yeah.
Agency. Yep. Notice. And then I didn't have a pre-approval in this one yet because I was still waiting on it, but I put that. But my point is that all of that is clean and it's in one attachment. It's dated. And then I'm going to follow up with that agent. And I'm going to say, hey, just can you confirm that you've received it? Great. When do you think you're going to be speaking with your sellers? And I look forward to working with you. You know, you're just boom. I'm diligent. I'm on top of my stuff. I'm detail oriented.
Is that what you did? Is you scanned yourself? You printed them out and scanned them
No, just
to put them in one document?
Just download it as PDF. All in one.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
I don't-
No,
everything.
I
I
don't-
did too.
yeah,
Sellers-
I'm relatively paperless.
The
So the
seller's
Disclosure and everything, those are all PDFs attached to the listing, downloaded to my computer.
If
You
you
just
have
put-
it in a loop, right? If you have it digitally
Yeah, well, I download.
signed
Yeah,
and stuff
yep,
like that, right?
yep. I downloaded. Yeah. Now, if you had to fill it out manually and
Then you
with
scan it.
pen, yeah, you would scan it in. That make sense, Justin?
Yeah, do you have a software that puts it all into one PDF?
No, it's
I do
automatic in Dotloop.
Through Dotloop. Yep.
Oh, so you can take the seller's disclosure and put it into Dotloop, and then
Yep.
as
that's
you pull it. Oh, that's right, because you can pull in your own PDFs. Okay.
exactly. Yep.
Sorry,
Exactly.
I haven't done it.
No, no worries.
Okay. So we'll go back when we now start to talk about DocuSign, right? Now that that's what we're using, but all those templates are already in that portal, so to speak, right? They're called rooms now, in that room, not a loop. And If you're getting them electronically signed, they reside in that room with everybody's verified signatures, right? So then when it comes to the point where you want to assemble like a PDF like this with check marks, right? You're just going to select all of the different documents that you want to include, and you're going to hit a download button, and it combines all of those into one file with every form that you checked off. Does that kind of?
Can you
Answer
choose
the
the
question.
order?
Yes, you can move
Okay.
them around. Yeah. Go ahead, Simone.
I have a comment about submitting an offer. So by the time I write an offer, I've already made contact with that listing agent, so they know to expect one.
Yeah.
As
And
you
then when I
should.
send that email, I also shoot out a text just so that I
Perfect.
don't keep going back to my email, because time is of the essence, you know.
And
And
going,
just in case they didn't get it, I just want to know in my mind they received it, and I need
Of
them
course.
to know it's coming,
of course.
even though
Absolutely.
it's not ready.
Yeah, nothing bothers me more than poor communication in a transaction, because I've had deals where I've never even met the listing agent or the buyer's agent, even at closing, just never met them, right? So the only thing that I have to judge my experience with them is the way that their responsiveness is and the way that they communicate. And I always want to be guilty of over communicating, if anything.
Mhm.
So, you know, when I follow up with someone and it's like they don't acknowledge it, and then I politely follow up again, they're like, yeah, I'm talking with the agent. Oh, okay, great, thank you so much. Like, just killing them with kindness, but internally you're like frustrated because you're like, come on, acknowledge. So yeah, I always do that, and I don't ever feel like you're bothering or bugging someone, because you are working for your client, right? Your client needs to know that you are on top of it. The last thing that you want is to not have your offer considered because they never saw it, because you never were aggressive enough to follow up to make sure that they got it. Okay. Sharon, can you share your screen again so I can make sure we're on track?
Yep, I just closed that because I wanted to see what else was going on. Hold on. Wait, what do you want me to look at?
I looked at the process. Go back to the
Okay.
process again.
Hold on. So hold on. There we go.
So seller's agent
Where are we?
has, let's say they've acknowledged that, I think we're probably,
We are right here. Once both
little bit-
parties agree.
yeah, well, let's fast forward, or let's rewind just a second.
Okay.
So if your buyer, or if the seller rather counters, right? This is a sticking point with some people. How do we negotiate, right? You can do it in a number of ways, but I'll tell you, you always want to make sure that you are looking out for your client's best interest. And this is different on the sell side versus the buy side. Meaning, if you submit an offer as a buyer and your listing agent counters via text, phone call, whatever, that's a verbal counter. And even if your buyer agrees to it, it's still verbal. And that's important to know, because if you call, or if you submit an offer and they say, hey, we love everything about your offer, but we want to counter the price we're willing to do $250. And you say, great, awesome, $250. And you don't get that signed, and another offer comes in, and that seller says, well, we're taking that other offer. They can do so.
Yep.
And it sucks.
Mhm.
So if you are great, if you're the buyer's agent and you say, great, your sellers will accept $250, great. Please, listing agent, please mark up the PA. Please cross 245 out, write 250, have your seller sign and send it back to me, right?
ASAP.
Right? So that puts the seller's signatures on it, putting the ball back in your court for your buyers to acknowledge.
Sometimes a listing agent may not want to do that work, and you can jump in and offer and say, you know what, I'll write it up. I'll make a brand new clean offer, and I'll have my buyers sign it, right? So it's just one price, one everything, not things crossed out, and sign it and send it back. So make it as easy as possible to get those terms in writing. Yeah. Right. Control what you can.
Yep. So you can take a received offer and you can mark it up, meaning you can electronically cross out or change things, or you can just keep the negotiations verbal, or you can write a clean one up, or a combination of all three of those. But the most important thing that you need to understand is, until it's in writing as signed or accepted, right? It's just verbal, and you're potentially another deal could go through. Okay. So always act quickly and make sure that you get these things signed in order to make sure that you have a secure contract. Once
So you don't
do,
see,
yeah,
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Go
So
ahead.
you don't see a risk in going back and just rewriting a brand new clean one where they might say, now this contract expired, we haven't signed the new one yet. Do you see any risk there at all? I'd like a fresh, clean copy too.
Yeah, I
but-
mean, it depends. If I've got multiple things that have been changed in an offer, it can get really messy with all these initials and signatures and stuff.
Yeah.
So a clean offer, there's nothing wrong with that, but you just have to understand that while that's getting signed by your buyers and resubmitted by you, other things could happen. Right?
Yeah.
So,
So it
I
just has to
think,
be timely.
Yeah,
and
timely.
you're also probably talking about perception a little bit, because as long as that initial offer hasn't been bottom lined by both parties, you don't have anything.
True.
Right. But if you perceive that the other party may waffle because they think something's expired or whatever, you have to play it in the way that you think is going to secure the deal.
Okay.
Right. You have
Yep.
to kind of use your instincts and intuition a little
Right.
bit on that.
Yeah. But it's very common for you to submit an offer and then be going about your business, and then for them to email or text, and you call your buyer and you're negotiating all, remotely until you come up with terms and then go back and revise that offer. I mean, that's okay too, but time, again, that line, time will kill all deals. Just make sure that you're working quickly for it. If you're not hearing back from them, like, you are on it. This is where you will potentially lose, make or break deals.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's assume that it's been fully executed. What does that mean? Well, when you submit an offer, your buyers are going to sign it. The sellers are then going to accept it. And then when you receive it, and there's a lot of people that talk about, do you have to bottom line it? Do you not? Bottom line it is, there's basically 3 sets of signatures. It's the buyer's signature when they submit the offer, seller's signature when they accept or counter it, and then the buyer's signature again at the bottom, acknowledging the sellers accepted it, or acknowledging that the sellers made some changes and agreeing to them. Okay. It's at the bottom of the page, and that's why it's called bottom lining.
But be careful, because I get wrapped up in this sometimes, and I've learned to let it go. The verbiage on that bottom line would make you think that it only applies to counter offers.
Yeah.
Ignore that. Just have your buyer sign at the bottom.
So what does she mean? If you submit an offer and
Let's see.
everything about
find
it is accepted by that seller, and they send it back to you with no changes, I still have my buyer bottom line it, because the title company, the mortgage company, the way it's written is that they need acknowledgement by the buyer that the seller has signed it. Does that make sense?
I'll show you. Let me find it. Here it is.
So what I do then is, after my seller or my buyer rather has bottom lined it, I then have a fully executed PA, and that's what I provide copies of to everybody involved with the transaction.
So here's like the signature page. Can you guys see my screen? Okay.
This is where the
So,
buyer would submit,
right?
when they're submitting the offer, they're going to put their name.
Right. He's going to sign right here first. Then the seller's acceptance, or if they've made changes, right? They're signing here because they've countered. Now, when you get down here to the bottom, right? Counter offer. In the event that seller makes any written change in any terms and conditions of the offer presented by buyer, such change terms and conditions shall constitute a counter offer by seller to buyer, and which shall remain valid until X, unless earlier withdrawn. By the execution of this instrument, the buyer acknowledges the receipt of a copy of this agreement. So it's this bottom line that says, by the execution of this instrument. It has nothing to do with the counteroffer part. Like, don't think it's part of the same sentence, the same paragraph, right?
Yeah.
This counteroffer sentence is about if they've made changes.
Yes.
But
So-
this bottom sentence needs to be signed because that applies to the whole thing, whether there's a counter or not.
So let me just throw this scenario out there, because again, and these details are important, and I hope I'm not having you tune out. If you submit an offer, and scroll up a bit, if you submit an offer, your buyers sign it, and then the seller, the listing agent, counters one thing on it, and you know that they're going to get other offers and you want to lock this up for your buyer, have them sign it. They are going to make a change on the PA somewhere, maybe the price or a term. And then they're going to put in that counter offer, they're going to put a day and time that the seller's counter offer is valid through, in order for your buyers then to accept that within that period of time. And
And
that
let me-
protects your buyer. Does that make sense?
Well, wait, you're saying, say that again.
So if the sellers sign here, but they've
And they
made a
counter,
counter, this is
right?
where they would put the when
Right here.
their counter is valid through.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
So let me just clear something up though. If that's left blank, that doesn't mean that your buyer has forever to get back to them,
Correct.
because this contract is not fully executable and does not bind both parties to anything until that very bottom bottom line is signed.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
don't think that that gives you some kind of breathing room.
Yeah. I've heard agents say,
Doesn't.
well, we got screwed, and listen, the devil's in the details. And
Mhm.
this is, and I emphasize these points because a lot of agents by nature are really great with people, but they're not good with contracts. They're not good with the details, addendums, those kinds of things. And if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. And again, there's nothing worse than representing a buyer and having them miss out because you screwed up. So
Right.
just again, when you receive the offer back, either it's countered or accepted, your buyers will sign at the bottom, again, bottom lining it. And the effective date of the contract isn't when they bottom line it, though. It's when the sellers agree to it. FYI.
Is it? Really?
Yes. Yeah. So if I submit an offer on a Saturday and the sellers sign it and send it back on, what did I just say? Saturday?
Saturday. Like
Okay.
say they
And
sent it back on
the
Sunday.
seller and the seller send it back and it's signed on Saturday. And then my buyers don't bottom line it till Sunday. It's Saturday.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once you have that fully that bottom line PA, and that's important because your number of days for your inspection and your contingencies start upon the day that it's executed. So that's why it's important to know these things. And it's days. It's not business days. It's days. So you need to make sure that you start your clock, right? And I read it on the calendar. It's like, okay, this is the PA day, so that means I have to do the inspection or whatever on or before this day. So you're communicating that with your client.
Now, if
Yep.
I could interrupt, I think that's actually a question that I would ask or challenge Pete on, because if you're going back and forth on a counter offer situation for 2 days or 3 days, would that initial counter offer date really be the contract date that your inspection contingency period would start on?
No, it's the effective date. So regardless of the date that the contract was first submitted, the date that it was accepted.
But it was accepted with a counter.
Then it's not accepted. It's countered.
So it's the bottom line date.
No, it's so the bottom line date is just an acknowledgement. It's not an
Okay. So
So-
maybe it would be the date of the last initials,
maybe
the last changes that were made.
maybe.
That's an interesting. Sorry, guys, we got.
No,
into the
I
weeds
mean
with
it's
that.
all great. I mean, again,
Yeah.
devil's in the details, and you think
Yeah.
like you're going right until all of a sudden you're not.
Yep.
All right, we'll look into that. So the way I write my offers is for earnest money deposit. There's a couple of ways of doing that. Sometimes if you submit an offer, the listing agent will say, well, I need a copy of the EMD. If you've written in your offer that the earnest money deposit is not to be collected until the offer is accepted, because I don't like collecting checks from my buyers unless I know that the deal's actually going to be accepted, you're going to collect it at that time.
Mhm.
And it can be a cashier's check, and can be a personal check, whatever. It's written out to our brokerage. It's turned into our MCA office. right? I typically have them write on the memo, EMD, whatever address,
And the address, yeah.
to make sure if it gets, lost, they can tie it back to that. And then the clock starts. I mean, let me take that back. You're going to get the EMD within a certain period of time to execute an agreement, but your clock starts once the purchase agreement is signed.
Accepted,
So
yeah.
inspection, all of those things need to be done. Even loan application, whatever it says per the purchase agreement, you have to make sure that you're adhering to. So at that time, I'm sending a copy of the fully executed purchase agreement to all the parties involved. I'm making sure that the lender has what they need in order for them to apply, because you're going to have in your PA, they need to apply within X amount of days. You're scheduling the inspection or inspections needed to be within the period of time. And then I also want to emphasize that period of time is really, it's not just inspection period, but think of it as due diligence. Okay. Due diligence is a legal term to basically means gathering information to make a decision. And what I mean by that is, yes, you're going to have the inspection done with that period of time, but you're also going to take that time to review the homeowners association documents, or what the house looks like at night, because you are really concerned about safety, or let's verify that elementary school services this home, or let's see what the utility bills are, or
Where's the bus stop?
Yeah, anything that you would,
yeah.
anything that you would want to check out. This is your get out of jail free. During this due diligence inspection period of time, your buyer could, in theory, walk away for any reason and get.
Yeah, they can say they don't like the color of the door and walk away.
Yeah. Yep.
Legally, right? So.
Yep. But you're going to want to quickly schedule all of the things that are necessary. And then it says attend home inspection. I'm going to talk in general terms, not right now, weird quarantine terms, but inspection, I'm always going to be there. You're going to see a lot of agents say, oh, I'm not going to be there and this and that. It's ridiculous to me. I don't understand it. It's sure it's not the best use of time, but it's my time to be there with my client to talk them off a ledge, especially if I have an inspector.
Exactly.
There's inspectors that are great at what they do, but they don't have great bedside manner. Or they need some mediation, or I just want to learn. I want to be present. I want to learn things. So I'm going to be at all the inspections, right? You're going to find a lot of times this day and age, buyers, especially millennial buyers or younger buyers, they're going to have their parents come. It's going to be a party there, right? So it's a great opportunity to meet other people.
I have an example of why you should be at an inspection. It's kind of like the telephone game, right? The inspector will say something and the client will hear one thing and you may hear something else. So my example was, we were at an inspection and the Mrs. Buyer came up from the basement and she said, the inspector said, there's a leak in the air conditioning line is leaking and we need a new air conditioner. We're going to want concessions, whatever. So when the inspector came back up, I asked for clarification. I was like, okay, Mrs. Buyer said that there's a leak in the air conditioner. Can you talk to me about that? Because I want to be able to talk to the listing agent about it, right? Because I'm representing my clients. He says to me, well, no, there's not a leak in the air conditioner. It's dripping off the line because there's condensation. All she has to do is go to Home Depot and buy one of those little half-cut foam liners and line it up and you're done. And it's fine. So, and then she just kind of looked at me. She was like, oh, I thought he said it was leaking. So had I not been there, I would have been sitting in my office asking for, $5,000 for an air conditioning.
Yeah, that damage control after the fact is really hard.
Right. You need to be there. And, you said that, that's during normal times, but even now during these quarantine times, an inspector can still go into a home. No one's allowed to be there, right? The inspector might FaceTime as he's doing it, or at a minimum, you can get onto a Zoom call like this with the inspector, you and the client, and you guys can all talk it through together. And so you're still there to ask questions and be objective and not emotional about whatever items are coming up. Still potentially talking your client off a ledge, right? So you can still be involved and should be involved, whether physically or virtually.
Yeah. Yeah. So normal times when I'm at inspection, you typically allocate 2.5 hours. You schedule it the same as you would a showing, right? You just specify the type of appointment. It's for inspection. Maybe contact a listing agent, make sure that, okay, great. Anything we should be concerned about? Or they might say, well, whatever. You just want to make sure communication's open and then no surprises. Inspectors typically are going to be there a little early. They're going to start on the outside. If you guys, we have inspectors that we can recommend. The office has a few people, some are 1-man teams, some are 2-man teams. But the purpose of the inspection, just to make sure that it's clear, is not to tell the buyer at the end of it whether they should purchase the home or not purchase the home. And I think some buyers think that that's what the intent is. I think it's also important for you to set the proper expectation that there's never been a perfect house. Even a brand new construction home, that inspector might say, well, I would do it this way, or I would do it this way. No home is perfect. There's going to be things. And that doesn't mean that those things should all be fixed or repaired by the seller.
Right.
Okay.
You're not going to receive a pristine piece of property.
Yeah. Especially if the things that are discovered or the buyer's concerned about are cosmetic or things that they would have seen prior to making the offer, right? The purpose of an inspection is not to report how many walls have dings in them or that the trim is cracked. It's to make sure that the things, to the best of their ability, like electrical, the safety, the plumbing, the furnace, the things that they...
Yeah, that's a really good point. So if you have, if your disclosures, and now I'm talking from the listing agent side, right?
Yeah.
If your disclosures say my furnace is 30 years old and they write me a full price offer and then they come back and they want 10 grand because the furnace is 30 years old, my first response to that is going to say, you knew it was 30 years old when you made the offer.
Is it working now?
Right.
Yes.
I also had some a great tip from Jim DeMora. What he will do when someone gives an offer that's under list, he will say, help me communicate this. Right. Oh, am I cutting out still? Hold on. Okay. So
I will tell you, Jean, but I don't know. And Simone, I don't know what she was about to say.
Can you hear me now?
Sharon.
Am I here? Hello? No? Yes? Can you hear me? Aw.